It's going to be a fight to the finish. This summer, terror won't be taking a vacation. Halloween H20.
Halloween H20 was directed by Steve Miner and came out in the year 1998. This film would come out 20 years after the events of the original two films in the franchise, and the reason for that being significant is that this film would serve not only as a soft reboot to the Halloween franchise, but it would also create a brand new timeline in the Halloween series. We had the Cult of Thorn timeline before this, we also had the one-off Season of the Witch timeline before this, but now we had a brand new timeline that would only recognize the events of the first two films in the franchise and then jump all the way to Halloween 20 years later. So let's do the review for Halloween H20.
Michael Myers is alive.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
So Halloween H20 would finally bring back Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, the sister of Michael Myers. Of course, in the Cult of Thorn timeline, she was killed off-screen in a car accident, and then her surviving daughter would go on to take her role in the franchise, the person that Michael Myers would be going after. But in this new timeline, Laurie Strode never died off-screen in a car accident. She continued living. She even changed her name to Carrie Tate to avoid Michael Myers. The film would also introduce to us the actor Josh Hartnett, and it was really cool seeing that he got his start in this film when he would then go on to be in a bunch of early 2000s horror flicks, and then he would take a break for a little while, but most recently he's come back in the M. Night Shyamalan film Trap, and this year in 2025 he was in a fun action film called Fight or Flight. I'm so happy that he's back to making big movies. But again, this was our introduction to Josh Hartnett, and in this film he would play the son of Laurie Strode, or Carrie Tate, and his name is John Tate. Halloween H20 would give us once again a brand new actor playing Michael Myers. This time around, filling out the role of the Shape would be Chris Durand. And the final person I wanted to mention is LL Cool J as Ronnie, the security guard at the school that Laurie Strode works at. So the film opens up on October 30th, 1998 in Langdon, Illinois, at the late Dr. Loomis's house. It's at that point when Nurse Marion Chambers rolls up to the house, an associate of Dr. Loomis, who seems to be living in his house, and it's unclear if they had something going on or what their relationship was, but she is living in his house now, and as she walks up to the front door, she realizes there's broken glass and somebody has broken in. So she goes to get the assistance of the teenage boys next door, and they decide to call the cops for her, but in true Illinois police fashion, it goes from light to dark outside with nobody coming to her rescue. So one of the teenage boys, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, goes into the house to search and see if anyone's there. He doesn't find anybody. He steals a couple of her beers and then he's like, see ya. So the teenage boys go back to their house. Nurse Marion then goes into the house to Dr. Loomis's office, where she finds someone has gone through all of the files, including the one that says Laurie Strode. And then at that point, we start to see Michael Myers in the background. The nurse sees him, gets scared, runs out of the house, runs back to the teenage boy's house to see if she can get their help once again, only to find that Michael Myers has already crossed their paths and they are dead in brutal ways. And then Nurse Marion goes face to face with the Shape, Michael Myers. We're then treated to an opening title sequence that shows you a bunch of newspaper clippings that Dr. Loomis had held on to. It shows that there's been no trace of Michael Myers over the last 20 years, that Laurie Strode died in a car accident, but you know she didn't really die in that car accident. She's actually changed her name to Carrie Tate. She's now working at a school. So what the opening credits of this film do with newspaper clippings and headlines and Loomis's work is show you what's gone on over the past 20 years. We then jump to everyone's favorite holiday of the year in this franchise, Halloween. October 31st, first at a private prep school where Laurie Strode, now known as Carrie Tate, is working. She's also dating the headmaster there, and her son John goes to school there. You then find out that her life isn't perfect. She's a bit of an alcoholic. She's still worried about her brother, Michael Myers, one day coming back to finish the job that he started 20 years ago. The fact that she picked this private school because it's so far from Haddonfield, and she picked this private school because it has round-the-clock security, just shows you how insecure she is. And then you see that a little bit more when her and her son John start getting into it, because John says he wants to go on a field trip with all the other kids, and she doesn't want her son to go on that because she's so scared. But eventually she decides to give in and say, you know what, I'm not going to let my fears rule your life. You can go on the field trip. And then of course John goes on the field trip. I'm kidding. Of course he doesn't do that. He decides that now that he has a pass to go on the field trip, he, his girlfriend, his best friend, and his best friend's girlfriend are all just going to hang out at the school over the weekend when everybody's supposed to be gone. And that of course is when Michael Myers makes his way through the gates of the private prep school to kill his sister Laurie Strode and her son, John Tate. And that is the best synopsis that I can give you for Halloween H20. If that sounds like a fun time and you're interested in checking out a different timeline in the Halloween franchise, well then I would recommend you check out Halloween H20. Now I am going to get to my positives and my negatives for this movie here in a minute, but before I do that, if this is the first time you found my channel, well I would love for you guys to hit that subscribe button, check out all the different content that I have, whether you like movie reviews, Blu-ray talk, or even ranked list videos. I've got a little bit of everything on my channel, and I'd love for you guys to check it out. Alright, let's get into my positives and my negatives for Halloween H20.
It's Halloween. I guess everyone is entitled to one good scare. I've had my share.
My first positive for this movie is going to be Jamie Lee Curtis and the performance that she gives throughout this film. I think it's such a different performance, turning her character of Laurie Strode from this girl that was a schoolgirl, had her whole life in front of her, she was babysitting, she was talking to her friends about boys, and now we jump 20 years in the future and she's this alcoholic recluse, scared to let her own son out of her sight because of what her brother might come back and do. And I felt like Jamie Lee Curtis had a lot of work to do to convince us that she had changed as a person over those 20 years, and she really had, and she had done such a great job changing that character of Laurie Strode from that young innocent girl to someone who's terrified of what's really out there in the world. You see that throughout the movie so many times when she's vulnerable, telling her boyfriend her backstory, something that she normally keeps very guarded, and then you see another side of her come out towards the end of this movie when she decides enough is enough, she's done running, she sends her son to safety and then turns around and goes back into the school to face Michael Myers head to head. And again, she just portrays all of these emotions so damn well. I love her portrayal as Laurie Strode in this film. My next positive for this movie is something that I really appreciate out of this timeline in particular, and that is leaving Michael and Laurie brother and sister. It's a big gripe I have about the 2018 timeline, and of course we'll get to those movies down the road, but for now we're talking about the H20 timeline, and I appreciate that they leave it as Michael and Laurie are brother and sister, because it gives Michael and Laurie the reason to go at each other one-on-one, because it's not just an aimless serial killer. If Michael had gotten out and Laurie had moved all the way across the country to a private prep school, he had no reason to go after her. It's not like she necessarily stopped him. It was more Loomis than anybody else in those first two films, and Loomis is dead now, so if Michael was back, he would just start going after other random people or other babysitters. But again, in this movie, they are still brother and sister, and I appreciate that because it shows that bond that's between the two of them, the reason that Michael has to go after his sister, and I love that they kept that intact in this timeline. My next positive is going to be another thing between Michael and Laurie, and that is the final showdown that they have in this film. I think it's one of the best back and forths that Michael has with any character in this franchise. He doesn't automatically get the upper hand, but he never looks weak against her. She is able to outmaneuver him at different points, but through most of this final showdown, he's throwing her around the room, throwing her through tables, trying to stab her, stabbing her. She's crawling under tables trying to get away from him. It's a great edge of your seat moment between the two of them, and it goes on for a good amount of time. I really appreciated the effort they put into that final showdown between the two of them. And my final positive for this movie is Michael only using a knife throughout the majority of this film. I decided to put this last in my positives because it's also kind of a negative. In the past, Michael's been really creative with some of his kills. He's been able to kill people with unique themes that are around him, and since he was was in a school, it would have been cool to see him maybe kill some people with some school items, but you don't really get that. There is a skate that's used at the beginning of the film, but I don't think you get to see Michael use that. And then there is a cork used at another time of the film, but again, you don't really get to see it being used very much. Pretty much throughout this film, you just see Michael wielding a knife to do his killing. And so the reason that's kind of a negative is because, again, in the past, you've been able to see him do cool stuff with other things. But why it's overall in my positives is because anytime Michael pulls that knife out in this film, you know he means business. In the past, he might miss you with a knife, or the knife may not kill you. It may be something else he uses to kill you. But again, in this movie, it really establishes Michael and the knife. And you may be able to say, well, he established himself in the first film when he sticks somebody to the wall with a knife. And I agree. But in that film, he was using his hands, he was using a knife. But in this film, if he pulls that knife out, it's go time, and your ass is next. So like I said, that can be a positive and a negative. If you're somebody who prefers Michael with a knife, then you'll really love the kills in this movie. And if you're someone who prefers that Michael use all the different weapons to his advantage that he finds around him, well, then you'll be a little irritated that you don't really get that in H20. That'll do it for my positives, and now we get into my negatives. And my first negative for this movie is that I understand Michael has this bond between himself and Laurie, and so once he comes back 20 years later, the first thing he does is seek out Laurie Strode and her son to take both of them out, to kill the Myers bloodline, something that he started in Halloween 1 and 2. And while I don't really have a problem with that, and I appreciate that they're still family, where I do have a negative is Michael's motivation in this movie, or the reason that he came back 20 years later, is pretty weak. It doesn't really explain to you why he's been missing for 20 years. He's just been missing for 20 years. And when he does finally decide to come out and go after Laurie, the only thing that the movie gives you is that the first time he attacked Laurie was when she was 17, and now her son just turned 17, and so now her son is 17, she was 17, so that's why Michael came back. The number 17. Why? The movie doesn't really explain it, they just hope you go along with it. So that's why it's a negative, because it's kind of a shallow reason for Michael to come out 20 years later. At least in the 2018 film, he breaks out of prison 40 years later, and so that makes a little more sense. But again, in this film, he just reappears in 20 years, and he's like, all right, now I'm coming after you. And the only thing that Laurie Strode can do is go, well, if I was 17 and my son was 17, that must be why he's back. Which again is a very shallow reason for Michael to just sort of appear 20 years later. My next negative is that while it was fun catching up with Laurie Strode, the movie does take a long time to really get going with Michael Myers doing his thing. You get to see some fun Myers moments at the very beginning of this film, and then for the majority of this movie, he's just stalking people in the background. You see him from a distance. The movie acts like we haven't seen Michael Myers for 20 years. Yes, the characters in this movie haven't seen him for 20 years, so when he starts to pop up, they're like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm looking at the same mask of Michael Myers. I can't believe Michael Myers is back. But for us, the viewers, we were getting Halloween movies every couple of years since 1978. So for us, that wasn't crazy. So to have Michael just sort of be a presence in the background, while it might have looked cool sometimes, it didn't have the same effect on us, the viewers, because we had seen Michael Myers so many times over the years. So I understand it was big for these characters, but because they make it this big reveal moment for these characters, it really slows down the pace of the movie. Now again, you get into that final act, or maybe halfway through the second act, and you are going with this film. I mean, it is at a great pace. Michael going after John, Michael going after Laurie, Michael going after anybody in his way, and it has a satisfying ending. But until you get to that moment, it really takes its time, because Michael Myers is in the background. But again, he hasn't been in the background for us, so it really slows down the first half of this film. And my final negative of this film is that it is a bit predictable. There's nothing groundbreaking in this film. There's some good performances from people, all the positives I already gave you, but the film opens with Michael Myers is back, and then Michael Myers is going after Laurie, and then Laurie fights Michael Myers, and then Laurie beats Michael Myers. I mean, it's the same beats that we've had in previous Halloween films, especially the ones that this film is linked to, both Halloween and Halloween 2. Michael Myers appears, Michael Myers goes after Laurie, Laurie and Michael fight, Laurie finds a way to beat Michael, and that's the movie. There's nothing new to that storyline. Now, it didn't necessarily need to be in 1998 when this film came out, because again, the goal of this film was to soft reboot the franchise. It was also to create a new timeline that forgot about the Cult of Thorn, which was just an absolute mess of a storyline by the time it ended. So the movie did what it needed to do, but I guess when you watch it through the lens of 2025 and you're watching this film, you're like, there's nothing really groundbreaking here. You didn't do anything new, and so that's a negative. But overall, even with those negatives, I still have a really fun time with Halloween H20 anytime that I put it on. And even though the next entry in this franchise, Halloween Resurrection, would ultimately kill this timeline, I think that Halloween H20 was a great soft reboot to this franchise and put this franchise back on the right tracks, getting people excited for Laurie Strode versus Michael Myers. But as always, guys, those are just my opinions because that's my review for Halloween H20. Have you guys had a chance to see this film since it came out in 1998? If you have, let me know your thoughts about this movie in that comment section down below. Let me know your favorite part of this movie, your least favorite part, and let me know if this is your favorite reboot to the franchise of Laurie versus Michael, or if it's another film down the road. And finally, guys, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Alright guys, we got to the end of my review for Halloween H20. I had a really fun time making this review, had a fun time watching the movie, but then as the movie ended, it dawned on me that the next film I have to review in this franchise is Halloween Resurrection. Part of me's looking forward to it, part of me's really not looking forward to this absolute dumpster fire of a film. But until I do that review, guys, if you want to check out any of the other content on my channel, well, I've got my entire Halloween movie review series playlist right there, and I've got my entire Friday the 13th review series playlist right there.